Hello everyone, and warmly welcome to today's Q&A session, where we're going to highlight some of the most frequently asked questions that we have received throughout the week from our IKEA coworkers, but also from the many other people who has been engaged in the week. My name is Hanna Lundgren, and I work with the communications at IKEA, and I have had the pleasure to work with the IKEA Communication Week project for the last few months. And with me today, I have Truus Hausman, Head of Communications at IKEA Foundation, and Brian Strauss, Strategic Communicator, who has been leading the work for this week. Warmly welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, good to see you. We only have 30 minutes today, and we have quite a few questions, but I would like to encourage all of you who are watching live to use the chat function and write your questions there, and we will try to address them as we go along. So, Truus and Ryan, are you ready to kick this off?
Ready to go.
Let's go.
Amazing, great. So let me then start with you, Ryan. Why did you come up with the IKEA Foundation Week, and what is it that you wanted to achieve?
Yeah, super good question. So the IKEA Foundation, as many of you probably know, was founded by Ingvar Kamprad, the founder of IKEA. And when he founded the IKEA Foundation, he said to Per, who is the CEO of the IKEA Foundation and was the first CEO of the IKEA Foundation, that he really wants to make sure that coworkers are proud of the work that the IKEA Foundation does. And we've taken that very seriously. So that's one of the reasons that we want coworkers to know about the IKEA Foundation, the work that we do. But also we realize that as we've been getting into more and more areas, like, for example, focusing on climate and focusing on refugees, we recognize that we want to have, that we can't do this on our own. We do give away a good sum of money, which is gives us a lot of opportunities to create impact and create a difference. But we can't solve climate change on our own. We can't solve the issue of the narrative around refugees on our own, which is why we want to engage the many coworkers in these causes. So actually, Jesper Brodin, the Incu Group CEO, came up with the idea for IKEA Foundation Week because he's been a passionate supporter of ours for many years. And it actually started as a day, and then it grew into a week. And we thought this was really a good opportunity to engage coworkers, to create awareness around the work that we do with the IKEA Foundation, and also hopefully pride. Because, of course, at the end of the day, this is only possible thanks to the work that coworkers do every single day, which is why we really hope that it's quite inspiring for people.
Thank you very much. Throughout the week, we had the opportunity to hear 5 beautiful stories from people who have received support from IKEA Foundation, Selco Foundation, Doctors Without Borders, Rainforest Alliance, Clear Air Fund, and UNHCR. But I know for a fact that you're working with many, many more. So, Truus, how many partners do you actually support?
Well, that changes from time to time, of course, but at the moment it's around 136 partners, and we are about 190 grants. That means that with our total grant making, we are the 9th largest foundation in Europe. But we are deliberately set up as a lean organization. So when we talk about the 136 grantees or partners, that means that we do this in a way that we are as cost effective and cost efficient as we can. So we're trying to achieve the outcome and the results with this group of partners.
Thank you, Truus. But there must be so many amazing organizations out there wanting your support. Is it difficult for you to choose which partners to collaborate with?
Yes. Yes, that's not easy because luckily there are so many organizations around the world that are trying to make a better world. And we have to be very selective. And we are selective on a few bases of criteria. One of them is, and we start with that, is to understand if the organization aligns in terms of values and the kind of ethical standards they have with us. So that is that's a big part of our first stage. And then, of course, the second big consideration is to what extent does that organization help us to move as I said, in an effective and efficient way to the outcomes we want to achieve. We call this sometimes a return on investment. Here, of course, the return on investment is not measured in financial or business terms, but we look at that in what can we achieve to create the positive social and environmental change we like to see. So that means that we are, because we know that we, although we have the generous resources from thanks to the hard work of all the IKEA co-workers, but it's still a limited amount of resources in the face of the big challenges we are trying to solve. So we want, if we work with a partner, we want to make sure that we are making a real big impact in what we want to achieve. And if possible, we also like to see if we can leverage with our investment more resources. So that makes the process quite intense, and this is a complex area, of course. So we take this very seriously, and it's not easy to identify the right partners. The good thing is, and that's my last word, once we have identified those partners, we go into it for the long term. This is not a 1 year or a few months project. We do this over multiple years because we know that the kind of challenges we are facing require a long-term approach.
Thank you, Truus. How do people and organizations go about requesting funding from the IKEA Foundation, Ryan?
Yeah, it's a good question. So one of the things with the IKEA Foundation that you should know is we actually don't have an open grant process. So you can't actually just send us an email and say, hey, we'd like to have some money. As Truus said, we spend quite a lot of time finding partners. And to do that, we have experts in each of the areas that we're trying to impact. You know, we're focused on climate and livelihoods. And under that, you see climate action, renewable energy, agriculture, livelihoods, employment and entrepreneurship, refugees, and emergencies as these real focus areas. So we have experts in each of these areas, and they will go out and they will, based on the problems that we're trying to solve there, they'll go out and they will actually find organizations who work in our target geographical areas, which tend to be areas outside of the backyard of IKEA, because the areas that we're talking about are really full of some of the most vulnerable people in the world. So the very short answer is you can't ask for funds from the IKEA Foundation. We will go out and we will find organizations who we can work with to help solve some of these problems. But I can assure you that we're always keeping an eye on the different sectors and being very selective with the partners that we work with to have these long-term results and really through some very large projects, because we tend not to do just very small grants. We tend to do big grants so that we can create scale and create long-term change.
Thank you, Ryan. And since the IKEA Foundation was actually funded, how much money have you given to partners so far in total?
Yep, it's a good question. So we were founded in 1982, actually, but in 2009, Ingvar changed the directive for the foundation to focus on children and their families. And since then, we've been able to give in grants more than by now, actually, 1.4 billion euros. That sounds like a lot. And it is. We have a budget to give away about 200 million euros every year, and it's actually not that easy to accomplish, because to do grant giving, really good quality grant giving where you're making an impact and making a change, requires more than just writing a check. It requires really working with partners to solve these issues. And I should also just mention that we very recently announced, which we are beyond excited about, an additional amount that our board has approved. Our board is very, very concerned, as we all are, about climate change right now. And they've said to us that they really want to see a rapid reduction in greenhouse gas emissions. And so what they've decided to do is invest an additional 1 billion euros over the next 5 years to rapidly reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And we're now working on how we're going to do that. And we hope to have some information to share on that very, very soon.
Wow, that's very, very impressive. Truus, how do you make sure that your granted money is being spent properly?
Oh, Truus, it happened. It had to happen, but you're on mute.
It had to happen. Yeah, I wanted to filter out some background noise, so thanks for catching me there. No, it's a super good question, because obviously we do need to take some risks, because the nature of the problems is such that we don't know what exactly the answer is. Otherwise, probably someone had already found the solution. But we want to do it in a way that we use the resources in the best way possible. So part of it, of course, as I already mentioned before, it's in the stages before we agree on a contract with our partners. So the whole phase of due diligence, which is much more than just words on paper, but we're going to really go into the organization, understand what's driving the organization and what kind of processes and procedures they have in place when things go wrong. Because we also know that, we are in the business of people, and whenever people are working, mistakes are made, and sometimes mistakes are made because it's really, really difficult. And of course, IKEA's values, which we share, embrace risk taking and learning from mistakes. And that brings me to the second part. We work with our partners in the implementation so that we understand what are some of the unforeseen situations, which always happens, right? If you're trying to achieve something. So it means that we can course correct during the grant process, and we can get it back on the right track, or we try something new. But both making sure that the partner has the right ethical framework, has the right procedures and processes to correct whenever things go wrong, and working with them on the other hand when there are unforeseen circumstances. I think these are the key elements to make sure that our resources are used in the best possible way.
Thank you, Truus. Last year and a half has been very tough on the world fighting COVID-19. Have you been contributing in any way during the pandemic, Ryan?
Yeah, it has been an incredibly difficult year, of course, not just for us and where we live, but for the many partners and where we support. We've been incredibly lucky in that you and I are able to wash our hands several times a day. We can isolate, we can choose not to come into contact with people. That's not quite the situation in many of the areas that we work in. So the first thing that we did is we asked our partners what kind of support do they need. At the very beginning, we, of course, came to a complete understanding that we wouldn't be able to do all of the projects that we had planned in the timelines that we had planned. And so we reached out and we asked, how can we support you? Some of this support wound up being in additional grants. Some of this support wound up being in reallocation of funding to support them to continue the work that they do, or to build up so that they can continue the work that they do. We also provide some grants to organizations like, for example, Médecins Sans Frontières, who has been, when we talk about superheroes, these are the superheroes. They've been working in many, many, many countries, deploying medical staff, logistics staff all over the place to help combat this terrible pandemic. We've also done some really great work with an organization called Purpose and the United Nations, where we're working with them to try and combat misinformation. And so that's been a really interesting one for us, because of course to get out of this pandemic, we have to, there's some things that have to happen to move forward, and vaccination is one of them. And also when we talk about vaccination, of course, it's great to see vaccines becoming available in some of these in some of our countries, but we know that that's not the case for all countries. And so now Share Verified is also concerning themselves with vaccine inequity, which we're quite passionate about as well. So we've done a number of different things with a number of different partners. We're very proud of all of our partners who have been able to do this. And very recently, I should also just mention that we provide some additional grants to support the situation in India, both with MSF, Médecins Sans Frontières, and IKEA Foundation.
Thank you, Ryan. Truus, do you think that the IKEA brand helps the work that you do?
Absolutely. We are tremendously proud to have the IKEA brand in our name. And what it means is that it is a trust mark for many organizations. And so many of the partners like to work with us because we have the IKEA brand in our name. So that's one part of it. And second is having the IKEA brand in our name means also that we show that we are open to work with businesses. And often the solutions we're developing with our partners, we like to give them scale, right, to make sure that these solutions reach the many, many, many people. And so that means that we have an access to the business community whenever we have developed a model which is ready for scale up. And that brings me actually to the third point. And a good example here is on refugee livelihoods, where IKEA leads by example. And the amazing commitment IKEA has made in both the supply chain dimension, but also by integrating refugees in their business, means that we show the way towards other businesses, and by doing that, achieve much more impact through our work. So it's we are amazingly proud to have the IKEA brand in our name. Of course, we're also very, very aware that this brings huge responsibility for us as well to do it right.
Thank you, Truus. Ryan, you were onto this before, but can you explain a little bit more about how the IKEA Foundation connects to the retail business and how it's funded?
Yeah, absolutely. So the IKEA Foundation is a little bit different from a typical corporate foundation that you might see. Corporate foundation means that the foundation is owned by a corporation or by a business, whereas the IKEA Foundation is actually part of the ownership structure, if you will, of Inca Group. So Inca Group is of course the owner of many of the IKEA stores around the world, the majority of IKEA stores around the world. IKEA is a franchise system, and so Inca Group is the largest franchisor of IKEA. And Inca Group is owned by a foundation, and that foundation is called Inca Foundation. So instead of having shareholders, it has one shareholder, which is Inca Foundation. In good years, when there's really good years, the profits from Inca Group go out to Inca Foundation, and Inca Foundation can then store those profits away for a rainy day or use them for charitable purposes, which is, of course, through the IKEA Foundation. So it's quite a different structure. It allows us to be completely independent. It allows us to focus on some of these really, really big issues without having the need for publicity, because when Ingvar created the IKEA Foundation, he said, we're not about publicity, we're about creating real change, which we try and do every single day. But at the end of the day, I always have to circle back to, this is only possible thanks to the profits from the business, which means thanks to the coworkers every single day. So when coworkers go into work and they sell a sofa or sell a kitchen, or they grab a forklift and pull something down, or they're in the call center answering phones, or they're working in communications or wherever they happen to be, they are contributing to the profit of IKEA, which contributes to the profit that we're able to take through Inca Foundation. So if I don't get a chance otherwise, let me just say a big thank you to everyone, because it really is only through your work every single day as IKEA coworkers that we're able to do the work that we're able to do. And then all those partners that Truus was talking about are able to do the work that they're able to do. So we're incredibly proud to be able to do this on your behalf.
Definitely something to feel proud of for us as IKEA coworkers. And now I have the most frequently asked question that we receive from coworkers, up until now at least. Why doesn't the IKEA Foundation fund activities in some specific countries? Truus, can you answer that one for me?
Yeah, and I can understand that question very much, because there's so much need, right, for funding around the world. So totally get it. Look, we first of all take as a starting point what is it what we want to achieve. We have a razor sharp focus on what Ryan already mentioned, the one big pillar in improving livelihoods, brighter lives on a livable planet. And so we take as a starting point the problem. We also want to be complementary, of course, to what IKEA itself is doing. So in many countries, IKEA, Inca is already doing amazing work. So why would we step in that situation? We want to be complementary. We want to make the difference, as I said before, and we want to make the difference in a way that we have the biggest chances for success. And that means that we also have to have a few enabling factors in place. So we're looking at countries where the needs are the largest or the problem is the biggest, and then understand what our other partners or other organizations are already doing? What's the position of government? Can we collaborate in a way where we have the largest chances for success? And then, of course, the third aspect of it is also, are there already other organizations that are doing amazing work, or is business itself already tackling the problem? In which case, if we would intervene, we probably would start muddling around. So it's the razor-sharp focus on what we're trying to achieve, the complementarity we are seeking to achieve, and understanding what are the enabling factors which will give us the greatest chance for success. And that means that, unfortunately, we cannot be everywhere, because if we were everywhere, we probably wouldn't be able to achieve anything. So that's why, unfortunately, we have to take a decision on where we are active, and we have to say that we cannot be in all the countries where you are, and even if we would love to step in to help.
Yeah, makes sense. Thank you, Truus. And I will continue with you, because this is now the second most frequently asked question. It's, how can people, we as coworkers, but also our customers, how can we get involved in the work that you do?
Yeah, also super good question. And I'd just like to extend my big thank you, first of all, to all your hard work as co-workers, because let me tell you one thing is that it's that the work you're doing day in, day out in making the business thrive, which is the biggest contribution, of course, you can already make to the IKEA Foundation. So thank you for that. But I can understand that you'd like to become more involved in the work we're doing. And there's one simple thing you can do, is to be the ambassador for the IKEA Foundation and stand for what we're trying to achieve as a foundation, and talk about that with your colleagues, with other co-workers, with friends and family in your communities, with customers, of course, if that is, if the right moment is there. So we would hugely encourage you to be our ambassadors. That's a big help you can give. The second part, of course, is to more broadly support the objectives we stand for. So when it's about climate change, look at what's happening in your own country, in your own community. Are there ways you can support that? Are there ways to improve the livelihoods of, indeed, the less well-off people in your own communities? Can you engage with those organizations, or can you engage with our partners, which are active if they are active in your countries, in your communities? So a few ways where you can broadly support the IKEA Foundation, and we'd love to connect with you, of course, to help you in doing that.
Thank you, Truus. Really, really good answer. A very interesting program called Eyewitness. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, and what is the plan going forward, Ryan?
Yeah, absolutely. I know that program very well, because in 2015, when I was working for IKEA Canada, I was an eyewitness. So I had the chance to visit UNHCR in Jordan. So Eyewitness was a program that the IKEA developed, where they have where coworkers who work for IKEA have the opportunity to go into the field, and they can actually visit one of the programs that IKEA Foundation supports. So in 2015, I went to Jordan to visit the UN Refugee Agency. And the number one thing I think that you hear from every eyewitness is it was a life-changing experience. And well, for me, it was a life-changing experience, because a few years down the road, I wound up working for the IKEA Foundation and supporting these programs myself. So Eyewitness is absolutely incredible. We've had over 700 coworkers go on these trips, and it is just absolutely incredible. And throughout the week, you'll hopefully hear from a number of eyewitnesses. Actually, very soon after this session is another session with an eyewitness from France, who also went to visit UNHCR. This morning, we had a couple of eyewitnesses from the UK who visited Selco Foundation, and tomorrow as well. As far as what's going on with the program in the future, we are so excited to be able to continue to engage with coworkers in all kinds of different ways, and Eyewitness is absolutely going to be one of them. Right now, it's on hold, of course. As we've said, with the pandemic, travel is not possible. It's just not something that we can do. And even as we start to get vaccinated, the countries that we visit are not there yet. So we don't anticipate travel happening anytime soon. We're looking at virtual options. How can we do this in a really good way so that we can bring people in and really engage them with the programs that we're doing virtually? And we're also looking at when we can go back to traveling, when we can go back to a more normal kind of situation. How do we make Eyewitness even more impactful? How do we grow it? How do we make it into some really cool, development opportunities, or how do we engage even more coworkers and customers with it? So we're really excited to be having those conversations right now, so that when things do reopen, we're going to be in a great position to be able to relaunch the Eyewitness program with hopefully with you and with many other coworkers, and have something really cool to talk about.
Thank you, Ryan. We have a question in the chat now from Ottawa in Canada, and he or she would like to know if there are any plans that will focus specifically on kids' health and mental well-being.
Yeah, Truce, I don't know if you want to take this. I think that everything that we do revolves around kids, right? Oh, you're on mute though, Truce.
No, but what we found out is that when you really want to tackle the root causes of some of those big problems around kids' health or mental well-being, the most important thing is that families have actually the opportunity to earn a decent income for their families. And with that, they can, whenever we speak with people on the ground, is whenever they have more income, they will tend to invest that back into their families, into the communities they're living. So the single most important thing you can do is to improve the livelihoods of families. But also, of course, we know that for the future of children and their children, we need to make sure that there will be a livable planet, and that we do whatever we can do to stop the climate from warming beyond the 1.5 degrees. So that's why we have that huge focus, and that is our first priority.
Thank you, Truce. We have a question from the US, and this person here is saying to have an idea about helping a non-profit. Who should this person contact about this unique, beneficial opportunity if she would like to continue with this one?
Yeah, so it's a super good question. Unfortunately, as I said a little bit earlier, we don't take unsolicited grant proposals. So what I can say is that you can always share it with us on social media, but at the end of the day, our focus is on a very narrow, razor thin focus. So if it's not in the geographic focus that we talked about, which tends to be in India, Africa, a little bit of a little bit of Asia and South America, then it's unlikely that we're going to be able to fund that particular program. And it's simply because as much as the funding does sound like it's a lot of money, it's not that much money when you're trying to create really big scalable change. And as Truce said earlier, if we were to fund every amazing organization around the world that really deserved it, and there are so many of them, then we wouldn't actually be able to create any kind of real change. And that's what we're really focused on at the IKEA Foundation. We want to be able to make really big, scalable change that can have a real impact on the world. So we know that there's so many amazing organizations out there, and we'd love to see them and hear about them. But unfortunately, we do have to be really focused, and that's why we have our program team actually go and find these organizations and work with them to develop these program proposals. But Hannah, before we wrap up, and I know we're running out of time, can I just ask you a question?
Yes, of course.
You have had a chance to be a part of IKEA Foundation Week from pretty much the beginning. And by the way, I just need to say that if it wasn't for you, we probably wouldn't have the week as we have it now. So big thank you for that. You've been amazing to work with. But you of course you work for IKEA. You've seen this week come to fruition. What's the reaction been like from coworkers that you've seen?
What I have seen, it's been really amazing. Coworkers are really understanding what the IKEA Foundation is doing, feeling extremely proud working for a company who can really contribute to a better everyday life for the many people. And also really investing in using 1 week of time to really highlight all the amazing things that you are doing. So all the feedback that I have received so far, it's been amazing. It's down to earth. It's very simple to understand what you're doing in a high level way, of course. But so far, amazing. And the people that I've spoken with would like to see another of this week in the next coming years.
Well, I hope that we can do that. And we should remind everyone as well that on the website, IKEAFoundation.org, you can find these 5 amazing stories that we're highlighting this week from 5 absolutely inspirational people. And you can also download the new IKEA Foundation Augmented Reality app, which is super, super cool, from IKEAFoundation.org/AR. And that's an opportunity to actually step into our world. And so we're really excited to be able to have those two things for you to check out.
Super. Well, with that, we've passed our 30 minutes, and I would like to thank all of you who has tuned in and listened to us, and super excited to have you here. And of course, just like Ryan said, if you want to know more, go visit their website. There is so many more stories there. Thank you very much. Have a lovely afternoon, evening, morning, wherever you are.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone. Bye. Bye-bye.